I do mostly remodeling. I've done a little bit of new construction. Started out, it was more smaller projects. I guess that's how a lot of companies start, but now it's bigger projects. I've done additions and got remodels and just mostly all remodeling.
And you and...
Oh, me and I have 2 employees, and then I pull in some other people when I need them.
Gotcha. And when did you start your business?
9 years ago.
9 years ago. Cool, thanks.
So I co-own Lake Effect Builders. We're in Washburn, Wisconsin, and we do work on the Bayfield Peninsula, once in a while a little bit south of Ashland and over on the South Shore. We started Lake Effect in '06, so that was 13 years ago, and I was doing construction from a laborer kind of up to that point for 10 years before that. The composition of Lake Effect is 6 full-time people, and we have a woman named Magdalene Dale who does some bookwork for us in our office part-time, and somewhat seasonally. She runs an orchard in Bayfield. But it's typically a six full-time people on our staff. And my business partner and I have some different roles. Leo Ketchum is my business partner. He's in the office quite a bit, estimating. We do payroll in-house, and he kind of takes care of a lot of that backdrop stuff. And then we have a few pieces of machinery that we move around to jobs. And Leo is a guru in our excavator and our skid steer, and is a great guy to tie down stuff and know that it shows up in one piece and on time and can fix stuff. And so he's both kind of clerical, behind the scenes, and kind of in the trenches with us. And so he gets a mixed kind of variety. I as the other half of ownership there, am with the guys out in the field quite a bit. I'm also estimating jobs, but I'm trying to stay ahead of kind of all the things that we're doing to make sure that the team is kind of has all the things they need to be highly effective for our clients. Yeah, I think that's kind of our structure.
Well, I'm Sean Godfrey, and owner of Chiselcraft. I came into Chiselcraft. I guess Chiselcraft started in 2004, and I didn't become owner until '06, I believe it was. And it was started by Todd Brokey, who was actually on the stage a year ago presenting as a farmer, and which leads into how I became full owner of Chiselcraft as he dove more into farming and took over to spearhead Northland College's food productions lab there. I guess we bill ourselves as custom home builders specializing in timber frame construction. And so for me, I guess how I really got into this was through timber framing and my love of timber framing and really working with hand tools, chisels, mallets, pegs, planes, all those good things there. But we've, starting out, I mean, when my first job doing construction was on a timber frame, and so I kind of started at this weird level. And after I got really excited about that, and then when I started looking for work, I'm like, oh, timber framing's kind of few and far between. And so as things went on, I just kind of picked up a few more skills, did a lot of remodels, did a lot of decks in the early days, and additions. And as we kind of did that, we really, every time we did it, we sort of, tried to push the timber element. Say, would that be nice if you take this wall out? What if we put a beam in here? And so, little bit by little bit, we kind of have been able to work up through that. I spent 2 years in Oregon working with a timber frame and stick frame company out there, who taught me a lot about not only just construction, but about how to treat people, how to run a company, and I took a lot away from that. I was the first non-family member to join their crew, and they treated me like a family member. So now we've got there's 5 employees, or 5 of us total doing it, and I have been, I guess, sole owner for the last 3 years now, this winter, I believe. And yeah, I guess our scope of work, we're working, right now we're up in Bayfield. We've done a lot of work down in Cable, Hayward, a lot of South of 2 stuff. Yeah, that's where we're at now.
And since you have the mic, do you want to share with us, so you were employed for a while, what motivated you to become an owner? What really motivated you to take that step?
Right, yeah, I mean, the goofy answer is I have difficulty with authority, I think, is kind of...
That's a common answer to this question, actually.
My mom's an artist, my dad's a CPA, and he, when I was young, he left, he was working a corporate job, and he left that and started on his own. And so I kind of, through my younger preteen, teen days, I watched our family kind of struggle and go through what it took for him to sort of build his business up and build his clientele up. I mean, I don't know if I was really driven to be my own boss, but I knew what I wanted. I knew how I wanted to work. And when I was in Oregon, the crew that I met out there, I mean, I could have worked for them forever if we would have stayed there, But when I came back here, and started connecting with some of the folks that I did timber framing with before, things just kind of fell into place. And and it was Todd and I for a long time, just the two of us. And as things kind of grew and really our interest sort of grew and our desire to learn more and to do more and to take, these small projects and thinking about the whole home, the whole house as a unit, and a lot of that really intrigued me on how to do that. And so, I don't know, that's a pretty windy, non-clear answer. But,
I invited Sean particularly because he has fabulous windy answers. I think that's pretty great. David, how about you? What motivated you to be a business owner as opposed to an employee?
Yeah. So when I think about my young days being really enthusiastic about this new trade that I was trying out to make some money along with some other jobs I was doing in my 20s, which is now many years ago. And I did the typical journey that a lot of tradespeople do, where you work for a host of different people over the first 10 years of your experience point, and you gain skills, perspective on how people run crews. You see good stuff, you see a lot of bad stuff, you see people who have gotten themselves stuck in the trades and didn't really mean to be in the trades, and they're kind of beat up by the trades. And you find some sweet zones in there where people are motivated to do really good work, to treat their people well, and those experiences are a little bit rarer than they are frequent. But I got to see both of those kind of spectrums of crews up here. And after some years of working for some folks who wouldn't communicate well enough, the pieces to get to a thoughtful contract so that everybody was on the same page, such that you could work from the day 1 to day 365 and have consistency with everybody, expectations and what you're doing. I found a lot of experiences where those things would go south on day 180, halfway through a fun whole house project that I wasn't in control of as a young junior person in the trades. I would see this just go off into the ditch. And for no nefarious reasons other than it being done on a handshake and some goodwill and maybe a beer at the beginning. And all of a sudden it gets too taxing for everybody and it goes into the ditch. And the morale in a crew in those settings is awful, and nobody likes to show up to situations that are heading that way. I found my place to a contractor that I knew through some EMT work I do for an ambulance that was doing it on the island. We did a refresher course together. His name was Mike North, and he was running a group called Northwoods Construction. And it was the late 90s, and I signed on with those guys, and I went out and did a couple years with them full time. And they were doing thoughtful, fun, custom house building work, and they were getting really fun projects, and all of the pieces worked. They were good to their employees, they ran their subs well, they were really good planners with the client, and we would get to the end of a project and the homeowner would have a party for us. And this is something I never experienced before. and they paid lots of money to have the job done, but it was done in the way that they wanted it done, and they had a word in throughout it, and the contract was solid. And after a couple of years of that, it was really motivating to replicate such a business on the mainland. And so I'm being too wordy, but I'll finish here in a sec. So with that motivation of how a crew does custom home building in a way that treats everybody fairly, I then came back, started to put some stuff together, found my business partner, Leo. We started to build up our program and found the right guys that we liked, and most of them are still with us, and we feel like we've replicated a partnership general contracting business, and we've had very happy clients and very happy projects and happy subs, and our guys that work for us in the field they feel valued and well-directed. And so that's been the real joy of being a business owner. It's not always easy, and it's a lot of hard work, and it's not glamorous, but it can be pretty darn satisfying.
Yeah, like Sean, I had a parent. My mother was self-employed. She started a business planting perennial gardens for folks. And she just had something she liked to do and was a hard worker and made it work. So I think that was a big inspiration for me to just see that it's possible. I also had worked for a lot of other people and was inspired by some of them, and then other people I worked for were less inspiring, and not only in a lot of ways. I think I had real specific ideas about how I wanted to run a business and the kind of work I wanted to do and the kind of work I didn't want to do. I wanted to do work I really could believe in. Ethically and environmentally, there's a lot of work that carpenters do that I had been asked to do that I just didn't believe in, whether it was using materials that aren't going to last or patching something up temporarily that's just going to fail in another year. Those were the kinds of things that I didn't want to do. I wanted to do quality work that I could believe in, and so that was a big part of wanting to start my own company. And also just kind of doing things on my term. I'm real particular about how things are done. I think probably like both of these guys. And I saw a lot of time getting wasted on job sites that I'd been on, and I just felt like I didn't want to do it that way. I felt like I had a good idea of how things should run, and so I was inspired to do it on my own. Also, in the beginning, I only worked 3 days a week. I was home with my kids 2 days a week, and that was really great. And I wouldn't have had that flexibility if I had been working for somebody else. So that was really a big part of it too, was kind of just doing things on my own terms.
Nice. And you can keep the microphone. I think the next piece, so one of the, this is partly the point of our conversations is always to kind of dissect that entrepreneurial piece, what it's like to run a small business, particularly in this area. And so I guess that's the next question is, what's been your biggest challenge in starting up and running your business?
I think, well, to this area specifically, I think one of the biggest challenges is you have to wear so many different hats. Especially, you guys build homes and it's maybe a little different, but I do remodeling, and if I just did, window replacement or just did, if I tried to narrow my focus, it would be much harder to find work just because there's so few people up here. So having to wear a lot of different hats and do a lot of different kinds of work in order to stay busy, I think was one of the hardest challenges in the beginning. Because there was a strong learning curve as you're picking up all these different trades. When my first carpentry job I did, we subbed out the sheetrock and we subbed out the floors and we, subbed out the paint. But I do a lot of that stuff in-house, so there's a big learning curve there. I think I've come over on that now, just with time, but that was a big challenge. It's tough just, it's stressful. You have to be good at turning off the mindset of the business owner at whenever time, 9 o'clock, when it's time to go to bed, or when it's time to read your kids' books at night, or whatever. And that's really hard. And I know I think that breaks some companies. another challenge too is businesses don't always fail because they're not successful. Sometimes businesses fail actually because they are successful. And I took in the beginning, I was fortunate enough to take a business plan writing class that was actually through partnership with the Bayfield Economic Development Council and UW Extension, which was really eye-opening. It was like a 12-week class, and we wrote a business plan, and that really opened my eyes to what, kind of the reality of owning your own business. It's not just having a truck and some tools. There's a lot more to it than that. So that was a great learning experience for me. And throughout the course of that, there was a lot of personal stories from people that had started business in this textbook that we read. And a lot of them were people whose company had, started small. All of a sudden, it got really big. And I mean, companies suffer because of that. All of a sudden, the phone never stops ringing, and you can't keep up with everybody, and customers notice that. When I started out, I was at every job all the time because I was the guy who did the work. And now I have employees, and so I can't have my eyes on everything quite the way that I used to. And so that's one of the challenges is becoming successful. It's not necessarily that I don't have work. It's sometimes having too much work is inherently challenging too.
So this is kind of challenges to business?
Yeah, challenges to starting or running your business?
Yeah. So I think I would agree with a lot of things Seth has said. I've just had some of those same experiences. There's a balancing act of being available to everybody who calls you for any little thing, and those are you got kind of want to honor every one of those calls. But then there's a backdrop to what's realistic for the flow of our team, and what's going to feel good to everybody, kind of on the nature of all these things, and yet not wanting to close doors and kind of get the word on the street that you're not very approachable, or these guys only do big stuff. And while we do mostly new construction, full homes, we certainly do a bathroom remodel or a window replacement, a single one for a single house. We do that stuff for sure currently. And so I think for Leo and for me, maybe the most challenging thing has been staffing size and control of quality. In the construction field, there's a magic triangle that's made up of 3 points. That is quality, cost, and time frame. And oftentimes people can hit 2 of those points, but not 3. And it's a real, I think it's a real merit badge on an outfit that can manage the expectations from the start for time frame, cost in the same way, and then maintain high quality throughout. And so we've had to kind of work through those parameters. We've had to decide how many people we want to have, and as we thought about expanding beyond our 6 guys in the field, I don't want to lose control of hitting all 3 points for all of our clients. And so we've decided to stay size-wise where we are, and we've found ways to kind of move our gross volume every year up a little bit by subbing some things out and managing those subs. But we're not interested in being a 20 carpenter outfit. And so I think that's been kind of one of our biggest challenges, is just kind of figuring ourselves out how we want to keep going into the future. We feel like we have a good reputation, and our clients tell us that, and we want to keep it that way. And I don't want to just grow to make another $50,000 or $100,000 in a year and have that stuff come apart. And so that's been our trick, or the trickiest.
Yeah, that triangle, quality, time, and cost, I think that's
Construction class, I hope you wrote that down.
that's
seems like a
a big one. That is
pretty good one.
it is a good one, and I echo both of your guys' sentiments on the challenges. I mean, I think there are so many. And it depends on where you're at or what mindset you're in, maybe even that day, on what the greatest challenge is. And, I mean, I struggle a lot with that triangle and trying to do that, especially on a bigger job and attempting to see the job as it is as a whole, and then to see it as all the individual parts. And then how do you pick apart those parts into smaller parts, and kind of assigning who you need to go, who you need to go with for those different things. Bidding, timeline and cost, those are hard to do, especially on real big ones for me. I don't know if I have a biggest challenge. I mean, I think all of those are really, whether it's turning your brain off and allowing yourself to be there for your other responsibilities in life, but yet being ready for the next day and the materials that need to be picked up, the answers that need to be gotten, and keep track of somebody who may not be there or should be there. Those are huge. One thing I think that for me, maybe to add on to what you guys have said there is, I'd like to believe that when we get a job, and one of my attributes that I think that I have is my ability to speak to the customer or the homeowner in a way that instills them with trust, and whether and I guess I try to create that trust through transparency, through respect, and patience, really, because without the patience, and that's something that I really have had to learn. People get pretty fiery on a job site. Things happen, emotions get going, and so to be there and to think clearly when something happened, and it's just what are we going to do about this? And did the homeowner see that? How can we problem solve this before that comes to be? I think keeping that trust is something that that I really strive for, and through that is how I try to meet my challenges, I guess. Is keeping that transparency and knowing and trying to get them to understand that no matter what may be going on, no matter what may have happened or what was originally thought about, if you have that trust there, if you can instill in them that at the end of the day you have their best interests in mind, in heart, is that we're not there to take advantage of somebody or to try to make as much as we can on a job, because then on the street, everybody's like, oh, this happened, it's a small enough town. And so in order to uphold that, to let them know that we have their best interests in mind, I think is a challenge sometimes when you're dealing with lots of money and you're dealing with time frame, and up here you're dealing with weather, a lot of moisture, and a lot of cold.
Yeah. Since you took us there, I'll ask you to pass the mic back to Dana. Since Sean, you kind of answered this question, but Dana, I'm curious, so you all work really closely with homeowners in probably a relatively stressful situation. What's the most important lesson you've learned with working with clients over the years?
I think the biggest reason, and it's easy to see of why a construction project of larger scale can be stressful, is it's the most money any of us shell out for in our life. It's 3x for what you might spend on a car, or 10x, or these are intimidating numbers, and housing can be expensive, and so Leo and I always approach these situations knowing that people will come and say, we've got these beautiful set of plans, and we don't know what they're going to cost, because our architect unfortunately didn't advise us at all on what it's going to cost. So to me, the best way to manage clients is kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, is that a very clear understanding of what it's going to cost going into it. And oftentimes we won't contract because we spend several weeks with a client getting some control estimates together, and they'll find, listen, we thought we were going to get it done for 2/3 of what it is going to cost, and so we'll either make some revisions, or we're going to rob our 401k and just do it. But we oftentimes find that, well, not even oftentimes, but we don't start a project until we have a price spelled out. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a bid, but more often, instead of a fixed price, we have a very detailed estimate. And then we do cost tracking each billing period with our clients so they can see where the needle is moving. Okay, in this category we're under 5, but this category we're over 5, but generally we're still totally on track. And so, so we do that for our client to manage their expectations and the high stress of spending the most money you've ever spent in your life. And then what they do for us before we start is they give us 20% down, and that 20% goes into a savings account held by Lake Effect Builders and is not used for any of the first 80% of construction. It's held as the final payment. And for us, it's a mechanism of understanding that if something catastrophic happened to them and they said, we got to shut this thing down, but we've got subs moving and materials coming, that we can shut that down, which we've never had to happen, but in a way that protects us and shows their commitment to the project on day one. And so it's just a long way of saying that the best way to manage a client and a project is to have it all spelled out at the beginning and not go in with kind of a loose handshake, because I've seen that just gone disastrously.
I'm going to switch it up, unless you
Sure.
have like
No, I was
something great to add.
kind of,
Okay,
yeah.
great. So we'll just so we, since you guys are giving longer answers, which is great. I love hearing your whole thought
So
process.
it's chop it up, chop.
Keep going, you guys. How's everyone doing? Good. Okay. If there's anyone, just so you're not asking a question right now, but just so I get a sense of who's like maybe going to have a question. Okay. All right. Good. All right. So I'm going to kick one off the top, and then we'll take one up from the audience. So I learned a new word, which is an occupational athlete. I didn't know that before, but folks in the trades are considered occupational athletes. And so the question is, how physically taxing is the work that you do, and what strategies do you have to kind of keep up your oomph for a lifetime of this?
I'm a big believer in physical therapy. I tell people that's like my religion, and that's not a joke. I spent a lot of time in there, and I've had great success. I mean, there's a lot. It's really easy to, slip off a ladder and bump your knee, and then it doesn't get better, and you start walking funny, and and then certain muscles get weak, and other ones get strong, and you start walking funny for the rest of your life, and then you can't go to work one day. But physical therapy is, that's what they're all about, is getting you to do things the way you should. Also, just running a safe job site. I don't like to have what I call cowboys on the job site. I don't want people that are like, well, I can carry 2 sheets of plywood. That's like against company policy. On my job, I don't want people showing off how strong they are. I'm always telling guys, get help, get somebody to help you get that thing on the roof, or get that out of my truck, or whatever it is. But the fact is, it is taxing, and the healthcare providers I have compared what I do and what carpenters do to professional athletes, because we're out there all day in every kind of weather and up on roofs. And both my PT and my chiropractor have told me to become the guy with the clipboard, and I am, and I think we all are. But at the same time, I don't want to be ruining the bodies of the people who work for me. So I just try to run my crew in a way that I guess is less taxing and more sustainable, because I don't want I want these guys to work with me for a while, and I don't want their bodies getting ruined either.
So really quickly, the people that are in the construction trade and say, I don't really need to work out or take care of myself because I do it at work all day, it's not true. And so these weird lifts and all that stuff that have to happen in the field need to be mixed with healthy living and active living. And so we've had better luck with employees that eat well and like to do stuff active outside of work. And so it's not like it's a prerequisite, but it's kind of the crew of folks that we've had working for us. And so they're bikers and runners and skiers, and a lot of us now are doing this CrossFit thing in Washburn, and that's been really cool. But whatever it is, just being thoughtful about keeping your body in shape means a lot in the construction field, because it is taxing and it is dangerous. I've had my hands sewn up in the ER a couple of times in the last several years. I've had an employee who just had both hips replaced at age 47. It's something to manage, and it's an exciting career and an exciting trade, but it's worth thoughtful care of your body.
Yeah, again, both of those sentiments. Yeah, safe job site is key. There's a few folks that show up to deliver goods, and they'll be lifting all this stuff, and it's like, I'm just gonna take half of that. But at the same time, yeah, healthy living. I wasn't sure if either of you guys would say that, but I mean, I'm kind of I find my solace in movement, and whether, even though I am moving all day, it's like I feel the need to get out there and to ski or to run or to do whatever it is any of us, feel, if we find enjoyment in doing that's physical. Healthy lifestyle, healthy eating is key. I personally, I stretch daily. I make sure to at the least at the end of the day, to spend 20 minutes just really stretching things out, and just kind of, which helps me clear my head as well. But one thing that we've done recently, and I'm glad that we can do this, is I've got it's not a lot, but it's a small fund set aside for each of us, all employees, to use to get any kind of body work they need, because it hurts. And there are times when it's just like, God, I need to make chiropractic appointment, I need to make a massage appointment. We just don't do it because we don't have the time, And so I try to remind everybody on the crew a couple times a year, like, hey, don't forget, there's that money there. If anybody's feeling it, like, get some body work done. Send that bill this way, because if your body's hurting, then you're grumpy. If you're grumpy, you're not fun to be at, and at work, and not as much is getting done. So it's a balance, but it's a constant mindfulness, I think, too, on how you're lifting and what you're doing. A lot of the stuff we do is really repetitive, and it's really abusive, like very short and fast and hard, or it's a weird position, for 4 hours straight, and so. That's not like working out. That's like abusing your body. So you do have to do something after that to make it happen. And the folks that just go to the tavern to relax and to numb it. Sure, that's fun, but you see, after the years of that, they're the ones that hurt more. It is noticeable. I've definitely seen it. So
I'm so in love with that set of answers. I taught yoga for a long time. I wish everyone thought that about their bodies like that, so thank you for that. I saw a question way back in the corner from the construction class. You want to, yeah, go for it. And if you want to specify who you think, maybe this is Sean, Dana, and Seth, so anyone in particular should answer.
My name is Robert Boyd, and I teach the construction class here at the Enterprise Building. And I've got students that they're doing very well in the class. And they lost their life and started a little business of their own, but they're lacking the experience. They're learning all the basic stuff, but they're lacking the experience, beyond that little circle of basics. What would you suggest the next step would be to get that experience?
So did everyone hear that question? Great, okay, I'm not going to repeat it.
Well, I guess my recognition. How do you get that experience? I think that's a pretty common yearning for anyone that's just starting out and getting excited. For me, it was find a passion. Whatever. There's many different facets to what we do, whether it's carpentry or home building, but find a passion. Something in there that you really like doing. And do it on your own. YouTube is pretty amazing these days, honestly. I was up late last night watching a silly video on something. I was like, oh, how's that gonna work? And and so there's lots of, I think there's lots of videos to watch. I think just doing something for yourself, finding a project around your house, or checking in with family members. Hey, is there something you could do with that? As far as finding that experience with a working crew, with and fitting in somewhere, I think that's hard. I think opportunities are there. I'm really excited to know that there is a class at WITC doing that. I think that's great. I mean, a lot of it comes down to luck and timing, but it is difficult. But persistence too. I've definitely gotten calls and emails from folks that want to learn, and we don't often have a place to pay them, but I always open up the shop, in the shop, say, hey, come down, check this out, see what we're doing. If you want to connect up for coffee, for a beer, and talk about this, then let's do that, And I think there are different other organizations nationally that folks can connect with, that workshops will happen here and there at different folk schools or at different events. I don't know if you guys have anything to add to that, or?
I do just a touch on that. So I think the best thing that somebody out of tech school that's looking to go to the next level is to find somebody good and work with them. To me, there's some muscle memory about being around people who do things right. And there are lots of different ways to do some things, but in terms of building stairs and having them blocked off the wall by a 2x4 so that your skin of the interior comes down and doesn't have to interfere with that, you'll learn it once and you'll do it for the rest of your life the right way. And so I think there's a real good place or the right place to start, and it's easier said than done, is to find yourself in a situation, and you'll be laboring for a crew for a while, but the crew that does things well. There's no trade-off to me for being around stuff that's done right. And getting that muscle memory of, oh yeah, I know how to do that because I've been around it and I did it right. Or instead of being confused by somebody who made it up on the spot. And so finding out how to, finding all those tricks, I don't know that there's any decent replacement for that. Of being around somebody who's been around the block and is a thoughtful deliverer of that information. And it may take a while because I know we don't take on new, younger folks as much as I'd like to. And we've gotten a little bit used to hiring people that are fairly experienced from the get-go. And I would like to get into a mentoring program that worked and kind of brought that full circle. So that we can deliver some of those skills too. But I can't say enough. It happened to me in my early 20s when I was cleaning up on a job site, and I had a guru named Russ Klinger, who's an experienced carpenter up in Bayfield, and he did everything very well and very right. And so I just became a student of his for a number of years, and then moved on and found somebody else. But I think the personal experience like that with somebody who does things very well is key.
Yeah, and I would definitely second that. But I would also say if you want to start your own business, it's important to not only have a role model as a carpenter, but also as a business owner and a supervisor. Because I've been in a lot of jobs and those aren't always the same thing. I've worked for a lot of good carpenters who maybe didn't relate with homeowners as well, or weren't the best job site supervisor. And I've worked with great people who ran a business really well and who, ran the crew really well and treated all their employees really well. But I also, had a lot of jobs that, I'm glad I don't have anymore. So, it's not gonna come right away necessarily, but I would say not only finding a role model as a carpenter, but also if you want to be a business owner, find a role model as a business owner. And I'm really grateful for those people I've had too, that I got to be somebody on their crew and see how they ran a crew. I think that's really important too.
Nice. You start talking about working with some other folks. I'm wondering if any of you have thoughts on partnerships not just your crew and with workers, but with your subcontractors. How important are these partnerships to your business success?
Huge.
Yeah, immensely.
Huge.
That's,
Oh wait, that was a short answer question.
yeah.
Tell me what you've learned about working with subcontractors over the years.
Well, they're almost like, it's a different kind of relationship because, you know, I have customers who, and I'm the business provider, and with the subcontractor, it's like you're the customer and they're the business provider. So it's kind of an interesting switch of roles. But I would say the same rules apply. Just be honest and let them know that you value them and try to make their lives easy, and they'll reciprocate. And it is huge to have stuff that you've used before, and there's already that trust there, and they know how you like things done, and they know, and you know what they need from you, and it's really valuable to have somebody and work with them more than once. Just develop that relationship.
So I can just go on and on and on about it, but it's those basics. The subs are part of the business family. They're key components. They desperately like to be managed well, as all of us do in a business setting. They want the right setup. They don't want to come into something and say, this was going to cost me $20,000, but you told them that you were going to bid me out at 15, and how am I going to do that? We don't do that with our subs. Just like our clients, we set them up for success. And it's a long-ranging experience that we've had, but our HVAC contractor and our electrician especially are like family to us. And so we treat them very well, we set them up for success, and we push them when they need to be pushed, and we give them everything that they need, and they give us everything that they need. And so it's quite a relationship, but it's a deep relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think really what we do as a profession, I think a lot of it, and maybe this is true about so much of what all of us do in our various things, it is about relationships. It's about the connections we make with the homeowner, with the client, with the subs, and that relationship is everything. You know, I mean, I guess I see those relationships again. You know, trust, patience. Yeah, I mean, and this is, you know, with those things, I mean, that's how you build a quality product, is having that communication, having that trust there. And I think even beyond, you know, as far as the relationships with the subs, and Seth, to kind of tap to what you said previously, is finding, you know, a mentor of sorts that is not just a good carpenter, not just a good builder, but also a good business person. And that was one thing that I feel like that I think is sometimes undervalued when starting a business and trying to create those relationships. Whether you're just trying to meet subs and find out which ones you jive with, and you know how they work, and if that's the quality you're looking for. But I mean, do you know a lawyer? Do you know an accountant? Do you know somebody in the city planning? I mean, all of these things are key aspects to what we do, and you know, I look at it as like it's you know, building your team, you know, because I mean I can think I'm the best builder and, you know, do the most quality work, but without any of those other components, without any of those other people, when I don't know something, to be able to call, if I've got no one to call, well then I'm guessing, you know, and the moment I'm guessing is when, you know, that's when you start losing trust, and that's when things can kind of break down. So I think really having a team, whether it's subs, whether it's, you know, on a business and looking at contracts, or somebody in the banking industry to well, how do I set up these accounts, and what's maybe the best way to do this? I think that's often not looked at and is really key to some of the foundational aspects of success, really. So.
Thank you. A question from the audience? Front row, you always get to ask the first question. I mean, come on.
What would each of you say are 5 of the key things that you would say an entrepreneur that is really beginning needs? Like 5 essential things, whether it's a trade or something like finance or anything like that.
So the question, did everyone hear that? It was 5 essential things that a brand new entrepreneur needs.
5 5, right, I know, all right, 6 gotta keep track. 5
And
essential.
let's see if we can lay those out in 5 words. I mean,
Start with me? Let's just start throwing.
Yeah.
So communication. If you
Yes.
can't communicate, that's one.
great.
Yeah,
I would say passion. I think it's much easier to start a business if you're passionate about something. I really love the idea of making homes more energy efficient. So I wasn't just starting a business to have a job, but because I was doing something that I believed in. And I think people feel that when you are approaching customers, and I think we're drawn to it.
Communication, passion, what else?
well, maybe this goes with communication, but the ability to listen. The ability to not talk and to listen to what is going on, to see what's happening, and this is not one word at all.
I mean, you know, like I said, I didn't invite you guys because you were turtles.
Right?
The ability to listen and, and also to be able to foresee what's coming down the line, what you need to prepare for, and to be able to listen to what the needs are.
So, and then another is, I find some people want to work about half time. They're kind of strong for part of the day, and then they're kind of fluff sometimes of the day. And so I think if you're going to run your own business, I think having a real burning desire to give it for your client and not kind of let up, but go at it as strongly as you can and as effectively as you can. I think that's a core piece of a business owner. I think a lot of people don't want to go and have all that stress, and I think working for somebody is a good place to kind of park yourself and to work, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think if you want to run your own company, you got to have a lot of fire.
And I mean, and with that fire, time management.
Sure.
Because if you've got the fire and no time management, well then you're going to burn out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, because that's passion, yeah.
Yep. I think we're saying a lot of the same things, but yeah.
Other audience questions? Jim, I don't
Kind of
know.
a two-part question, and the first part I'll make it real easy. Are there any local or state or federal authorities or licensing groups that are kind of a challenge for you guys? And the second part is, do you fellows typically incorporate? Is that how you set up?
LLC filing as an S corp.
Yeah, we're incorporated S corp as well.
LLC, sole proprietor.
Local, Bayfield County local zoning, good, professional, solid, staffed decently, so you can get stuff done timely, and thoughtful folks. We have a UDC code for new construction stuff, Uniform Dwelling Code, and we have UDC inspectors that work up here that aren't tied into Bayfield County, but are shepherded in by them.
Are those state guys?
They are, yep. So we've got a guy up here, Jim Price, that's our residential UDC code guy up here right now. He's a really nice guy and has been doing it for quite a while, but he's overworked, he's overtaxed. The system, it needs more dilution, he needs more help. And so his inspections will be too brief in my eye, but they don't hold up a project. And a typical costs $1,200 to $1,500 for those code checks throughout a full home, just to give you a sense of what that costs. And then there's a commercial, we do a little bit of light commercial, and there's a different UDC person for state code stuff. But very approachable, pretty realistic, and thoughtful. I actually wish there was a little bit more of that.
And as far as being licensed, you guys are licensed, aren't you?
Yep.
Yeah. That's, that really hasn't been a challenge for me. I wasn't licensed for the first few years, and I recently became licensed, well, not recently, but a few years ago. There's a continuing ed requirement, but I go to a conference in Duluth every year, and I was actually going to it, and before I was licensed and not clocking hours, but being licensed, I would say, is a big challenge.
What is the license? What do you call it? Contractor, or what your license, what?
General contractor license, there's many different licenses depending on, and sometimes some of that stuff is a bit confusing. I feel like for a while there was like there was one that was mimicking general contractor, but it didn't quite have the same stuff, and you have to have a qualifier, a person who is licensed that's on there, it's the company that's got the license, and then there has to be a person, usually the owner, that's the qualifier.
Yeah. All new construction permits have to have a qualified contractor, somebody who has that license. And that, just like Seth said, that requires every 2 years doing some CEC credits, either at conferences or online, but showing that you're attached to the code book.
And I mean, any of that licensure stuff is I mean, it's bureaucracy. I mean, there is a bit of a pain to it. It's only difficult if you make it difficult, if you fight it, if you know, it's about the relationships again. You know, I mean, I feel like I've had a couple inspectors that came out very gruff, and I had to pull the phone away from my ear and take a deep breath and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I must have misunderstood that. What? Can you inform me?" You know, like, and really try to just be vulnerable. You know, just put it out there, because if you believe in what you're doing and you're trying your best to try to find out all of the different parts of the codes and license, they see that, and they see the humanity in that, I think, and say, "Oh, okay, well, let me help you out. I'll give you a pass here, but you need to do this, or you got to do that." So.
Mike, I saw that you had your hand up.
Yeah, sure. The stuff you had mentioned from the get-go, you got help and guidance in creating your own business plan for your small business venture. I guess I'd like to hear a tad bit more about how that has helped you and how you use that business plan, that the other fellows are using one as well, and it being a living document, how has it changed? And how can you share that with those that are here?
Well, yeah, Mike is mentioning the class that I took, and that was to write a business plan. And most of the people in that class wanted to write a business plan in order to take it to a bank and secure financing to start a business. I didn't borrow any money when I started my business, so I didn't need a business plan. If you want to take out a loan to start a business, banks require a business plan, so they know that you have a plan for what you're going to do, what you're going to make each month, what you're going to spend. So it really helped me, even though I didn't apply for a loan, it really helped me to know what my expenses were going to be, and just get familiar with spreadsheets. And I actually decided to raise my hourly rate after taking that class, which was great for me, because it made me realize this money is not all going to go in my pocket. I'm going to have to pay taxes, and I'm going to have to, pay insurance, and sometimes I'm not going to get paid to work. Sometimes, mistakes are going to happen, and I'm going to go back and work for free, and that has to be built into your hourly rate. Also, it was a great chance to network. A lot of the people in the class were already business owners that were looking to either expand or change what they were doing, and so it's great to meet them and talk with them. The people who taught the class had experience in small business. And then the textbook, like I mentioned earlier, had all of these personal stories, like real first-hand stories of people who had started businesses and how it had gone for them, and the challenges, and that was really valuable to me, just to hear, firsthand people's experience with starting a business.
Right.
So you touched on this already, but I've also got a two-part question. What was it like getting your initial venture capital? And do you think those initial years of experience are mandatory to start a construction business?
So I'm not
So
sure
a little bit
that,
about capital and startup.
right, we did have to take out a loan when we started, or we decided to start to have a place to operate out of, and to tool up in a little bit more meaningful way. I was already into the trade enough for it not to be a huge eye-opener, and so I didn't have any kind of shocking, glaring moments in that process. Keep it brief.
Yeah. I didn't take out a loan, and I don't know, maybe my theme being relationships. That's kind of what I worked on when we got a job where there was a tool that we didn't have. We called upon other carpenters, other crews, and said, "Hey, can we borrow that, or can we rent that from you? And can you shoot me a few pointers?" And so, for me, that experience was crucial in order to get to that point. And I've kind of just utilize what I've had, whether it's an outbuilding on my property for a shop, or whether it's, or whether it's just connecting and, with enough other people to impart that knowledge on me to then get a job and learn how to make money on that job, and then take some of that money and say, okay, now we can get this tool. Let's make sure this happens. So I mean, for the first number of years, it was any money we made on jobs that went right into a tool purchase. I'd say, okay, now I've got one more.
As far as having to work for someone else in the beginning, I guess I would say if you're willing to start small and take small jobs, I mean, that was kind of, working 3 days a week, that was kind of what I had to do. And I ended up doing a lot of sort of handyman kind of stuff. And people would say, do you know how to reseat a toilet? And I would say, yeah, I'm going to look that up on YouTube tonight. Sure, I can do that. And I did that a lot. And sometimes it bit me in the butt, but I learned a lot. And I did spend a lot of time doing research. And I spent time, I didn't bill for all of those hours if I, had to do something twice. And so I guess if you want to go that route, you have to be willing to maybe do things twice in order to make it right for your customers. And I think if you're honest with people, you can't do this job and not make mistakes. So I think if you're honest with people and up front, people appreciate that. And as long as you're willing to make things right and do it on your own dime, I think a lot of customers want, for certain jobs, they want just one person there. They don't want a whole crew of people in their house. And so I think there's a niche for that. And especially if you call people back and you're honest and friendly, I think if you're willing to start out doing more small handyman kind of jobs, I think there's work out there for those people. I get calls like that all the time, and it's harder for me to take those jobs on crew. But I really enjoyed that stuff, and when I get to do it now, I still enjoy it. Because people are satisfied. If you just get their door to stop being drafty in a couple hours, and they don't have ice, in their kitchen anymore, it's big. It's big. It's people happy.
But I bet that's right. I bet that's pretty common for construction groups up here, is not saying, I'm going to need $100K to start operating next September. But it's that, all right, I think I know what I'm doing, and I've got something to get me and my tools around, and I'm gonna formalize with a guy that I'm doing some work with, and I think the two of us are going to operate as such. And you build. And all of a sudden you've got 4 people working for you, and you're running a couple of company trucks around, and the point we're at now is where we pay half our guys' health insurance. We've got, we match 3% of their annual income in a retirement fund. We pay them a week's vacation, paid time off. We adapt to any other time off they need, and they know that, and we run a flexible crew. And we own an office and a heated shop, and they know that they've got that and can use that on the weekends. So we've got a little bit of infrastructure. It's none too fancy, but we've kind of gotten ourselves to a place where we didn't have to grab a bunch of cash at the beginning.
So we're kind of out of time for the night, but I did want to take one more question before we wrap up. Sir?
Yeah, I'd like to ask you a question about building inspection. And it's kind of a two-part question. First of all, are the building inspectors who come around, do they have a good handle on the trades? And the second part of my question is, do they get to your site in a reasonable amount of time so that you can keep moving forward?
Great questions.
I would say yes, for the most part, the inspectors do have a good handle on what they're inspecting. You can always say they don't know what they're talking about, because there is so much to know. It would be impossible for them to be experts at all aspects of what they do. And as far as the timeline goes, I'm under the understanding they've got 3 days from the moment that you call them and say, hey, we're ready for this stage of the inspection, the rough framing. And if they aren't able to make it there within 3 days, you can continue on. And so that's built into there. Regardless, I always take pictures. Whenever things are getting covered up, you take pictures, because inevitably something's going to get missed, and you can look back and say, oh yeah, that was there. So let's cut this hole out here. So.
Great, I'll be super quick. Spotty, the qualifications, the understanding of what they're looking at and the due diligence of doing that, spotty. And it's, I don't mean to fault, or I'm not going to point anybody out, but we've had an inspector that's now gone, but that used to come up from a couple hours south, which was fine, and he would work within his 3-day time request. But it was so quick and so light duty, and it was so just about kind of been here, yeah, looks good. Then we'll have inspectors that'll come in and diligently take the electrical panel apart, make sure that it's grounded appropriately. I mean, put all the screws back in and align that back up. And that's the stuff that you see here and there, and you don't see it all the time. And to me, there's some key things that should be looked at that are not covered all the time. But time, holding up a job isn't an issue. Sean hits it exactly right on the head, that's built in. There's a protection to the contractor, and so it can't be a 2-week time period where you're saying, everybody stop because I just can't get this inspected. So that works, but the professionalism is spotty.
I did say that was the last question, but our construction teacher there has had his hand up diligently, so we got to give him the last question of the evening.
I think I know that guy you're talking about. What changes do you foresee in the industry? Like, most people insist on going green, I know it's a 16-inch 2x4, the scratch pile, maybe more modular construction. What changes do you see coming with that? I know there are certain codes, but, you know, in a lot of cases, contractors, they go above and beyond what the code, which they're allowed. And what changes do you see coming?
Great, and since that's our last question, I just want to piggyback. Talk about your industry changes and also how you see fitting into that. I'm going to let that be kind of your final answers.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, with living up here in our climate, I think, you know, the biggest being, you know, I mean, green building and energy efficiency, I think are probably, you know, I see that as some of the bigger changes on the horizon, and how we as builders adapt our standard method of framing and building to sort of meet some of those new ideas. I think a lot of that's in flux right now, and people are doing some fun things to try to figure that out. You know, it wasn't too long ago that we realized that in order to have a nice warm house, we needed a tight house. And as soon as we found out that we needed a tight house, we realized, oh my God, we need our house to breathe because everything's molding. And so I think those, you know, having a tight house and how it breathes, and seeing a home as like a whole unit with all these working parts, as opposed to, oh, there's this aspect and they're independent. I don't know. I think some of those are some of the changes, and how we adapt to that, I think will be, to be determined. I don't know how I fit into that. I think I'm inherently a problem solver. I get excited about some of that stuff. There's a lot of neat things happening over in Europe right now on what and how they're building and what they're doing, and some of that's trickling over here. I think we're really fortunate. I think H Windows, you know, they came from Europe, and they bring a lot of, right, and in some conversations I have with them, they bring a lot of different things to the table and things that they've seen. And so, I think a person's ability to adapt and to problem solve is really going to keep somebody, relevant in the industry today.
Great. So Sean's right on the mark. Insulation levels have come up. Heat calcs are more stringent, and insulation quality has grown intensely in the last 12 years, and that's wonderful. And Sean's exactly right. His houses have tightened up, which is wonderful, and when we do blower door tests on them, it's just amazing at how tight a house can get. We need to mechanically ventilate those homes and passively ventilate those homes. And so all of that has gotten way more savvy, and that's been fun to move through the construction kind of upgrowth with that. The solar and PV stuff has gotten much cheaper. You can see there's a movement on this peninsula right now and beyond that's placing a lot of alternative energy into residential usage, and so that's really fun. We've been, to your modular question, we've done a few design builds in the last 2 years where we will work with a client and we'll sketch, and then we send it to a draftsman downstate. And for 50 cents a square foot, we can have a house done that can get code checked. So you all of a sudden don't have an architect on the job, but you're working with the client with kind of site built, design build stuff. And then we send that to a place a couple hours from here where they will build wall sections and bring it up and crane install it on our foundation and then put the trusses up and sheathe the roof. And we'll come back after we've run our subs through to get the slab or basement foundation ready. And 3 days later, after the crew comes through, you have a shell up. And it's allowed us to move more projects in the course of a year. And so I think that's a really fun thing. I could see an industry like that spawning in Ashland. There's plenty of space in Ashland and plenty of labor, and there's no reason somebody couldn't come up with a business plan to start doing modular house sections and working with contractors in the area. In fact, I think it'd be great.
Yeah, I agree with both of what was said here, but also Minnesota has just made the insulation requirements for their building code stricter. They now require insulation over the studs, which is a hot topic and makes a huge difference. But now you can't build a house now without continuing insulation on it in Minnesota. And hopefully Wisconsin will catch up with that because I think it's huge. And again, as we tighten up houses, we need to ventilate them. Houses used to be drafty, and so it didn't matter what you did with your moisture. But as they get tighter, there's danger of mold, and the building materials we actually use these days are more susceptible to mold. I think it's also nice now that I think quality home is synonymous with a well-insulated home. And I think, I kind of feel like that happened in 2008, like with the housing bubble, things came to a head, and all of a sudden it was less about granite countertops and more about, what's your air exchange per hour. And I think that's been a great shift that I've seen in the industry. And I think we're all set up to not take advantage of that, but we're already doing those things. And because that's what a quality house is one that performs well as a system.
Thank you so much for your attentiveness this evening. If you would mind, on your way out, filling out the demographic survey and the sort of quality survey, those really help us in identifying programming next. And also, if you would mind joining me in a round of applause for our 3 guests.